December 31st, like the quarantine just stops and January 1st comes around, but that's not going to happen.
I read a great tweet yesterday that said, "I'm suspicious. I wished everyone Happy New Year last year. So sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, fuck you."
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like that's the challenge of like New Year's stuff, which is like, oh, it's brand new all over again. It's like, honestly, like if you're just doing what you're doing last year, you're going to get the same thing as this year. Right.
100%. At least you hope.
Say again?
At least you hope, right?
At least you hope, right?
Yeah.
And so hopefully with today's lunch and learn or interview or whatever we're calling this thing, we'll be going over some end of year stuff, some SOP, some audits and things like that. And what I found was interesting is there was a huge thread in the group of like, hey, how do I handle looking back at 2020, right? And I remember you talking about that SOP process and how you kind of like think about that. I tagged you, you're like, Jeff, let's go live. I was like, hey, might as well. And so maybe that's like a good intro of like how we're supposed to think about 2020, 2021, what we did right, what we did wrong, agency audits, self audits, all that fun stuff.
Yeah. So I'll preface a little bit, and I think it's super valuable to hear. There's like small, this is going to sound really dumb how it's going to come out, but I think there's value in it, right? So it's like small years are each month, right? So every month, especially someone that doesn't have like a recurring model, which is many people, like especially newer in the business or like hustlers, as we call them, right? They'll have a month, and that month will be X revenue. Just for the sake of this, let's say it's 15,000. And then the month after is 8, and the month after is 30, and the month after is 6, and the month after is 40. And it's just up and down roller coaster, and they can't figure out why. And most of the time it's because they're not taking things in a vacuum and focusing on like how to audit to redo it. So like January 1 comes around, or February 1 comes around, or June 1 comes around. Everything that happened the prior 30, 28, 29 days is no longer relevant because you have no idea how it happened. You just worked your ass until you made it, or you didn't, right? And I think we've all been there at some point before. Anyone that's hustled enough for like minimum 12 months that has done that, at some point, some people have a longer ability to do this, but at some point you'll realize, oh my God, like I can't keep doing this model of like just doing things randomly and not having any recurring revenue. So the way that we look at the month in a vacuum is similar to how we look at a year. And it's even harder in a year because 365 days is a lot more than 30 days. It's in fact 12 times more. Maybe you knew that because there's 12 months in the year. I know. Crazy math right here. I know. But here's the thing, right? If you look back at what you achieved in the entirety of 20 and 20, now that we're here in 2021, and you don't really know how you went through and achieved the certain things that you did, you're going to start off the new year kind of flustered because it's like, well, let's start over again. Let's do it again. The biggest thing that's very odd about entrepreneurs, and I mentioned this, is entrepreneurs are more likely to look in the future than to look backwards and audit what happened in the past. How can you fix something if you don't know what was broken? Or how can you continue to do something if you don't know that it actually worked? That's kind of the baseline that I had for the annual planning and end of year audit SOP. There's 2 separate ones here, and I'll show you.
So if I understand correctly, what you're saying is a challenge that comes up again and again is having to restart from zero, which is what happens when you don't have a recurring business. But not taking that 0 to 30 days, 0 to 12 months, seeing what worked, do more of that, what didn't work, do less, and find this repeatable pattern of saying, let's just keep going back to the gym better, faster, and stronger, and drop that whole like freshman year hustle and grind mindset, right?
Exactly. It's the Pareto principle, right? The 80-20. So like what 20% of effort delivered the 80% of results, and opposite, what 80% of work that you put in only generated 20% result. There's one other thing that I think is key, and what we'll talk about here today. There's like a bad mindset, especially in our little entrepreneurial bubble, right? Don't forget, it's a bubble. If you talk to someone outside of this bubble, they're like, what the fuck are you talking about?
The normals?
Huh? Right. So just don't forget that, right?
Yeah.
The idea of like flex posts, and me included, by the way, I'm certainly not immune to this. I do it all the time, and I'm doing it today on my stories all the time. So don't get me wrong. I'm not perfect, but the flex posts, the people that are saying they're far ahead, you're not racing against anyone. It's about you only, right? Straight up. If you don't know this, I had open heart surgery 11 weeks ago. For the sake of this, I won't show you the scar. If you guys want to see it later, you can drop scar, and maybe Jeff will let me show it to you. It's pretty gnarly. It's pretty crazy. But like before that, right, I had a completely different mindset than what I had kind of facing mortality. Don't worry about what other people are doing. Focus on you, focus on your goals. Don't let myself or Jeff or anyone tell you what success means or what goals are. Just you do it. You need to just be happy and be able to provide for your family and be good. Those are the things that actually matter, especially after the year of 2020. So just want to preface with that. Otherwise it like becomes convoluted in what we're going to share. The way and the reason I made this specifically about a year ago, after 2018, it was after 2019. We had our best year in 2019. And I knew that we wanted to do this event that we were able to run and Jeff was able to go to in the beginning of the year, literally, by the way, a week before COVID started and shut everything down. So thank you, got lucky on that one. When I started in January of 2020, truly and 100% transparently, I was like, what did I do in 2019 that actually worked? I really did not know. I didn't know. And that made me pissed because like I coach people and I support people and I'm good at it. And I was like, this is such a failure to launch. Like, I really don't know why I just had my best year. And I can't pinpoint it because I didn't spend any time auditing it. And that's what led me to start building this SOP. So I'll share some of those things here. But before that, I want to share the kind of the three critical like elements that I'm trying to find for success. And this is my definition, not anyone else's. I think it does resonate with most people. And if it does resonate with you, let me know in the comments below. But what I'm trying to identify for this year for annual planning and for auditing last year, 2020, what achievements will make you or made you happy, legitimately happy, right? What specific achievements will make you fulfilled, meaning you live with purpose and you've actually done something that matters? And then what specific things made you dissatisfied, right? It's pretty freaking mind-blowing. And Jeff, I know you're in this with me on this. How many people who don't want to have a job or left a job to build a business that they actually hate 90% of it, right? It's like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? Now, I think it's weirdly enough, most entrepreneurs are absolute masochists and hate themselves and are terrible people to themselves. It's very strange. A mutual friend of ours, Dan Levens, one time told me, he said, Alex, if I had a microphone in your ear to listen to the guy that's talking to you inside, would I be friends with that person? I was like, oh, fuck no, that person's an asshole. He's like, why are you listening to that person? It's a great thing, right? It's very valuable to hear that. So again, what will make you happy? What will make you fulfilled? What will make you dissatisfied? Think about those things at a high level as we go through these SOPs. And if you're open to it, Jeff, I can share my screen and we can jump into it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to talk and riff on any of them.
Let's boogie. Go for it.
Let's do it. All right. So I'm going to open it up.
All right. And we may have to like do this circle roundabout, see what we can do here. Hold on. No.
I can also zoom in, I think.
Yeah. Go for a zoom.
Okay. I think that's
all right. We're good. All right.
Awesome. If you guys can see this, can you let us know in the comments so we're aware? Make sure that you get what you need from this. And if you have any questions as we go through it, just drop it in the comments and then I'll happily answer any questions. There's no right or wrong here. It's just a matter of what you take away from this. So again, one other really important thing. I know it's January 1 right now. So it's like, oh my God, it's a new year. It's just a different day on the calendar. Like, you're more than welcome to do this audit today. If you do it on Monday and it's the 4th, I promise you're not going to die. It's going to be completely okay. It's really, really fine. You don't have to rush on it. It's not about getting it done. It's about doing it right for you. That's a big thing. Like, people that I work with, Jeff, they're like, I did it. I finished it. I'm like, I don't care about finishing it. I'm like, what'd you get from it? Right.
Yep.
You can do one piece of it. If you got the value that you needed, that's great. Right. It's not like a aptitude. I did it. I finished it. Checked. That's not the goal. We're trying to really get something from this. All right. Now I'm going to go through the first one. People look at this and they don't find value in this. Obviously, I'm repping culture all the time. The reason I'm wearing this hat most of the time is because I'm balding and I hate it. But other than that, I'm also repping culture because that's kind of my like modus operandi. I like building a community, building people that I like working with and enjoy their impact and all that stuff. So I like this sentence. I completely plagiarized it from where I don't know, but I did. It's definitely not me. I didn't write it. If you don't intentionally build a company culture, it will build itself. You probably won't like the results, probably. And most of the time, it's usually a negative culture if you don't purposely build something positively, because for some reason, like I said, entrepreneurs have this like usually negative tonality about how they treat themselves and frankly, the people they work with, which is weird. I don't know why that's the case, but it's like this weird psychological phenomenon that I'm ultimately interested in learning more about. What's your statement of impact? So statement of impact to me is like what your 3 core values are in your company. Like, who are you trying to impact most? Why are you trying to impact those people? And what does it specifically do for those people? I think those are really valuable and there's no right or wrong here. It's just something that you kind of take hold of. What did you do? Yeah, go ahead.
So would that be something like I help accountants double their income in 90 days or less, like that statement of impact, like mission type of thing? Is that correct?
Absolutely. That's exactly what we're talking about. I'll read a couple of them, sample ones. These are the ones that we give to our clients as boilerplate. Our company is set to help and impact business owners, employees, and families by significantly increasing their business revenue and time freedom. Our company is set to help and impact our lives by creating a company that empowers us to live a life of travel, time, financial freedom, and fulfillment. Our company is set to help and impact those around us by inspiring them to push the limit of what's possible to achieve in their lives. These are 3 things. Now, I want to say this transparently. Is that incredibly corny? 100%. Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean corny doesn't mean it's not valuable. It's still really valuable. I look at it sometimes and I laugh at it. I think it's kind of silly, but it also gives you like a core value, like an affirmation statement to really understand what you're doing this for.
And does having like the core values help figure out if something is in culture or out of culture? Like, is that like a good guide? Is that correct?
Exactly. That's the idea. It's like being the Sherpa, identifying like what your goalpost is. Because oftentimes as human beings and definitely as entrepreneurs, we're constantly moving the goalposts. And we're wondering like, if we're moving the goalposts so much, it's hard to like identify if you're successful or not. And that's why most people will constantly share, I'm not successful, I failed, I didn't do enough, because they didn't actually have a clear goalpost, or the goalpost keeps moving. So you like set yourself up for losing no matter what you do. You can't possibly win because you move it all the time.
I think that is like massively important. Like, I was supposed to be happy at X result and I'm not happy at X result. It's like, well, maybe you move the goalpost. Maybe you're paying too much attention to the guy that's doing $1 million a month and you're not really looking at your journey and consistent improvement.
100%. It's crazy how many people are focused on other people and then measure their happiness, self-worth, or success to that. And I'm not alone in that, by the way, or I'm not immune to that. Everyone is, right? Like, but it's an unhealthy thing. Like, it's an unhealthy and unfair and unreasonable thing. Focus on what you can do and what you have control over. And I think that's really valuable and the purpose of this audit in the first place.
Very cool.
The next elements, what did we do in the past year to cultivate a positive culture? Essentially, what things were you able to do that were able to cultivate it? Did you have an event? Did you do team meetings? Did you send holiday cards? What did you do to cultivate a positive culture? What opportunities were missed? Things that you can learn from that now you can do moving forward. And then how will you even be more intentional about it in the new year? Okay. Now, bluntly, some of the people that look at this audit, look at this as a throwaway. If you don't get the vibe on this, I'm not going to force you to do it or get it. You just do your thing. We'll start focusing on the things that I know you'll actually really want to see in step number 2, which is goal review. If you're watching this live or on replay, I strongly recommend that you try to utilize this time to think about the things you have and just have a notepad out and just brain dump. There's no wrong answers here. It will really, really help you and it'll be incredibly valuable long-term, okay? Now, we start with this one and it makes people have a mini heart attack because when it says, what was your annual revenue goal? And you're like, shit, I have no idea. Great. It's January 1, 2021. You'll never make that mistake again because guess what we're going to do? You're going to have an annual revenue goal for this year. All right. And we're going to talk about it. Did you hit your goal? What were the 3 biggest factors to hitting or not hitting your goal? The reason we put 3 here, and Brian and I disagreed on this a little bit, Jeff, but I think it's interesting. The reason I put 3 is because I wanted to limit the ideas of like, what were the biggest impacts? But then sometimes people would put 5 or some people put 1. So I get it. I just put 3 for that purpose. It's not like black or white. If you want to do one thing, that was the biggest thing. If you want to put 5 things, that was the biggest things. That's okay. And then finally, what 3 optimizations will you make in this new year in order to hit that goal in this coming year? This is how you're auditing the ideas of what worked or what didn't. Now, again, I talk about this a lot. Like, the revenues are not the things you really want. The profit is what really matters in the business. The revenue allows you to make better investments, have better team. All that stuff is great. But profit is what your take home is. That's really what we're talking about at the end of the day. So what was your profit goal for the year? Did you hit that goal? What were the 3 biggest factors to hitting or not hitting that goal? And then the same thing, what 3 optimizations will you do in the new year to hit this goal? Now, if you look at this and you're like, shit, I don't have an annual goal, that's totally fine. Do it from the last goal you have. Ideally, last quarter goal, last monthly goal, etc. Now, transparently, this audit is exactly the same as another audit that we have. It just says quarterly audit. Same exact thing, except everything that says annual or end of year just says quarterly. That's literally the only difference in the SOP. I just thought it would be valuable to see all of the people I work with have an end of year one. It was already an SOP we had for quarterly. So it's the same exact thing, except you're just looking at it in a larger time frame. For other goals, any other goal that you had, use these 3 prompts. Did you hit the goal? What were the 3 biggest factors to hitting or not hitting the goal? And what 3 optimizations will you make in the new year or a new quarter to hit the goal? Examples for goals would be customer retention, brand awareness, client lifetime value, email list growth, and you could read the rest. I don't want to read them all. But some people like Facebook group growth, et cetera, all of those things. I didn't want to put 300 prompts on here, so you can put whichever ones you need, okay? Guys, if you want a copy of this, just drop copy in the comments below and I'll happily share it with you. It's totally fine. This one was what Jeff put in the launch post yesterday, or his hype post rather. So this team member review, this is super powerful and makes a huge difference for your scaling. Again, most of you, I hope, have some people on your team. If you're brand new to this, you might not want to go through this portion of the audit because it won't make much sense, but this is immensely powerful and valuable. You want to review each team member's scorecard or job role. Scorecard is basically like their KPIs, metrics, responsibilities, the role itself. If you don't have that, that's the first thing you should do in the beginning of this year. Make sure every single person on your team knows exactly what their responsibility and role is. Otherwise, you're going to be really pissed when they don't do their job effectively. Were they a valuable asset to your business this year? And will they be in the year moving forward? So again, in this scenario on the quarterly one, it said, were they a valuable asset to your business this quarter? Will they be for the following quarter? Again, exactly the same. You just change some language. I feel like sometimes when you give an SOP, it's like, I can't change it. It's perfect. It's like, it's okay. You can change it. I promise it will be okay. It's really valuable to use this. What improvements can be made to their job role, if any? This is not only made for you, it's made for them. You want to have a Knights of the Round Table approach with the people you work with in your agency or coaching program or business, whatever it is that you do. You want to make sure that they have a say in this. How can you improve your job this year and thus improve and increase your compensation to do so? Okay. This is exactly that element. This is the next question. Have you reviewed their motivations and goals for 2021 to ensure alignment into 2021, right? Their motivations and goals are really important. I actually got to give credit where credit is due. I learned this very directly from Iconic Becker, as both of us know, and many of you know as well. He really inspired me with the way he treated the people on his team as family, but way beyond the business side of things, focusing on what they're trying to achieve in their life and how the business can facilitate that. And I really took hold of that and took ownership of that idea for every single person I work with, including clients, by the way, which you don't have to take that big of a step, but I do personally. And I think it's extremely valuable. And we say it's very specifically. We utilize the language of expressing how can we support your goals and facilitate the life you want to live through working with us. That is something that's really valuable, and also creates this thing that I'm wearing on my head, which is culture, which was the first thing we spoke about. Opportunity cost of losing team members is like really freaking frustrating, especially good team members that they leave because there's a better opportunity for them. Trying to replace that is very challenging. So this is really valuable to do. This is something that I think is great, an MVP audit. Jeff, you'll laugh at this. I had several clients ask me what MVP is. And I realized, oh shit, okay, I guess I'm using a sports term that some people don't know. I thought that was hilarious. I was cracking up. MVP is most valuable player. That's like a sports terminology for basically every single sport. But essentially in this scenario, it's like, who's the most valuable team member you had outside of yourself? Because I fear that half the people doing this audit will be like, me, I'm the best. I'm the most valuable, blah, blah, blah. Shut up. It's not somebody else. It's about your team. Who's the most valuable person on the team, and write 3 logical reasons. Now, this is the most valuable thing you can do in the team member review. That rhymed. If you do this 3 elements, right? You go to every other single team member and say, here's why Calvin was the MVP of our team this year. Here's why. I want you to do them so you can become the MVP next year. It will automatically not just increase the value of team member who's the MVP, but every team member thereafter, because you're actually thinking about who is the MVP and why, not just who is. That's the biggest thing. Most of the time, you don't even realize what person X versus person Y team members are doing in any difference, even though person X is way more efficient than person Y. Why are you not doing that? Why are you not getting clarity on what you can do to improve their efficiency? Okay. Last 2 elements on this portion. And then if there's any questions, you can ask me. If there's anything in the comments, please just let me know. Is there a desperate need for a specific hire? Why or why not? And then, is any team member expendable? I'm going to read this and then give you a qualification that I hadn't considered that a client gave me, which is totally fair and reasonable. It said, if you told a team member to take a break for 2 weeks and your business would still be running well, then do you really need them in the first place? I wrote that thinking that I was really smart and it was really sexy. And then someone came to me and said, well, what if you asked them to take 2 weeks off and they weren't working and the business was fine because your systems are appropriately set up? Right. And then I felt stupid. So yeah, I don't have a great answer for it. I think both sides make sense. So I'm not pretending that I have an awesome answer for it. I told that person straight up, like, that's really valuable insight. I think you have to make the decision then. Like, is it the system thing or is the person not valuable? I hadn't considered that, honestly, but I left it anyways. So sue me if you don't like it. Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, those are the first 3 elements. Any thoughts, questions? Are you guys liking this? Is this valuable? Can you let me know in the comments? Jeff, what do you think so far?
What I find interesting is, as like I had to restart my agency in the middle of Corona, team was effectively me, and then team was me and another person. And there's no slack, there's no MVP. It's like, you got to make this shit work. But as we started hiring people and found, the zone of genius, there's always a conversation of like, I don't know. Like, there's always this like wonder, right? And what ends up happening is, in my brain, if something doesn't go right with the client, I don't say it's my fault. I don't say it's a system's fault. I go, that guy. Like, it's that person, right? And that forces a lot of invalid assumptions. And it feels like this document removes the ability for me to emotionally make those decisions. You know what I mean?
Super valuable. Brian taught me something when we started working together, Jeff, I think you'll love. I think, I don't mean to be this way, but I'm pretty self-aware that I'm kind of like a blamer. Like, I'll take ownership a lot, but it's also so easy in the world that we live in to just blame and hand off responsibility. And I try to take responsibility, but I think there's it's difficult, since sometimes one of Brian's hard and fast rules in client reviews and management is that no matter what the client did, we have to take ownership of the problem first and identify if there's anything we could do. Now, are we perfect? Do we never blame? No, of course we fucking blame. That's definitely part of it. But that idea of like having that as a hard and fast rule, where the first thing we do is, this obstacle or problem is happening with this client, we're going to take ownership of it by saying we didn't do this thing. Even though it could still happen that we end up blaming the other person. But I think there's a lot of value to that, and similar to what you're saying.
So if I've got like 2 clients, both in the Los Angeles area, one client is doing really, really well, making like $30,000 in a month. Another client is like, it's been 90 days, I've got no money. My instinct is to be like, all right, let the client go. But what I'm hearing from you is saying, all right, what problem can I own in that relationship that enables that person to be better? Is there like a proactive sales training process?
Nailed it.
Is there some type of like overactive support? Does he just need somebody to say like, it's going to be okay? Your wife's not going to divorce you. Yes, you can make an offer. You know how to be a good client. Like, you can fulfill these orders. Like, that's what I'm hearing from you. Is that correct?
Nailed it. Exactly correct. And the hard part is like pretending as entrepreneurs that you're a robot and not having the emotional of like, that client's trash is not fair. Like, you're still allowed to think that way. I think it's having space for both thoughts.
Yeah.
Having space for like, that client's trash, we shouldn't work with him, but also, what could I do to take ownership of this problem and why they're not having success? And I think that's kind of the goal of this. Not to remove the emotional side, but to have both in play, both the logical frame of ownership and the emotional, that client's trash type of attitude. So both ways work. It's funny that you mentioned it with attorneys, because that's my agency. And they're just so fucking bad at business. It's hilarious. They're so bad at it.
Yeah.
It's so funny. They're terrible. All right. So that's the team member review. Let's go with the holistic growth review. There's another thing that Jeff said in the hype post that I think you guys will find extremely valuable. It's different than the goal review, because this is more of a feeling-based model. But I think if you guys take a minute right now to do this, it will be immensely powerful, whether you watch it on replay or watching live. So first off, identifying the metrics that matter most to you in a company's performance. This is certainly not an exhaustive list, but I think there's enough here to say that these are probably the most important. I personally think the top 3 here as the examples are probably the most important metrics in the business that are tangible, like revenue, profitability, and customer retention are the 3 most important elements of a successful business. The other elements of like brand awareness, which is kind of not tangible, to be honest, referrals, client lifetime value, email list growth, customer growth, podcast downloads, et cetera. Those are all dependent on your business model and what your goals are and what you're doing. So identify those that matter most to you. Again, not exhaustive. You can absolutely find something that's not on this something I found right away, ManyChat subscribers. Like, boom, there you go. There's one that's not on this list that you can absolutely have as your goal. So what I want you to do, and you can do this now, you can do this afterwards. What are your biggest achievements? What are your biggest achievements based on the metrics that you identified? On a separate paper, not on this one, otherwise it'll be the longest SOP you've ever done. Brain dump as many achievements from the past year that you can. Brain dump as many as you can. I wrote trust us is worth it because like when I ask people to do as many as they can, they give up after 5. It's like, bro, if you can't think of more than 5 from 365 days in a year, there's something seriously wrong with you. Seriously. Then you will list the top 3. So my recommendation is to try to list out at minimum 20. There's 20 things that you achieved this past year, at least, probably more. And then you have to go in there and try to prioritize the biggest 3, not the biggest 3 that Jeff said or the biggest 3 that Alex said or someone else said. The biggest 3 for you. And there's no right or wrong. No one can look at your list of achievements and be like, oh, that's not as important as that. BS. That's your choice. No one else's. Okay.
So is this like a team exercise, individual members? Is this a me exercise as an agency owner? Like,
excellent question. There's no right or wrong on this. We did this both ways. So Shira and I, my wife and I did this together. And then we did it as a team on a team meeting for the holiday party. We're drinking beers and relaxing and hanging out together and spending time together and just busting out as many things as we could. And they were personal, professional, business together. And I think we had a list of like 100 something just things. And by the time we were coming to the end and like at the, like, you know how like the kernels and popcorn pop at the end, like really slow. That's what the ideas were like. First it was like, and then it was like, oh, remember that thing we did in March where it was like that? And then it was like slower and slower and slower. But yeah, that we did it both ways. And I think there's value in either way. Like I said, there's no right or wrong. It's how you implement it. These are prompts.
Yeah. So this is based upon not a quantifiable, oh my God, I made so much money type of thing. It's really based upon, I feel like this is a huge important factor in me and my growth. For example, writing the book, doing branding videos, and finally figure out how to run high level. Like those are 3 things that I'm like, wow, I'm so proud I did that. Everybody else would be like, that doesn't even matter. But like, but it did for me. So that's what you're talking about, right?
Exactly. And also same idea. If someone's like, I made 100K for the first time this year, and that's one of your biggest achievements, absolutely, by all means, put that. Like there's literally nothing wrong with that. For me, the biggest achievements, all 3 of them were really easy. And one of them was personal, but it's obvious that I would put it there. The first one was running POD live. I wanted to do that for a long time, and being able to do that was amazing. The second one was living through heart surgery. And the third one was also personal, which was having my wife get pregnant and potentially and having a baby. Like we didn't yet, but we will. Like these don't have to only be business related. Obviously, the more business related they are, the more effective this audit becomes, and then it becomes a little more personal. But because we're entrepreneurs, we're so closely connected to the personal and professional side. Like I said, there's no right or wrong. Like there's plenty of business ones, but they all paled in comparison to those. And I think that's really, really key. So I think it's a really valuable thing. And then the next prompt you want to consider is how those 3 biggest achievements impacted your growth over this last year. And I find that to be an immensely powerful thought process and meditation on this. This portion of the SOP itself probably will take 20 to 30 minutes alone. And it's worth it. Like I said, when we started this, it's not about getting the audit done, right? Like I put an hour on the clock and I got it done. You don't need to rush this. You need to do it in the time frame that you feel that you're getting what you needed from it. That's the idea. That's the plan. So I'd love for anyone that's watching here, what do you think on the top of your head is just the biggest achievement you had? Can you just drop it in the chat? Like, let's just share that. I think that would be really cool to just hear from you what you felt is the biggest achievement, not achievement based on what you think we'll care about, an achievement that mattered to you personally or professionally. I think it's really valuable and important. So I would recommend doing it. The next one is something that I really enjoy doing a lot. It's probably the most challenging part of the SOP and the thing that takes the most critical thinking, the biggest lessons. On a separate paper, bring up as many lessons as you can from this past year. Now, a couple clients did some really valuable things that I want to share. A couple of them broke it down into sections. So they broke down like mindset lessons, prospecting lessons, sales lessons, fulfillment lessons, retention lessons. Other clients just did a whole brain dump, and it honestly was like overwhelming how many different things you can put in there. I really like the idea of separating them, but you don't have to have it in any right or wrong way. It's just as many as you can brain dump. And there's no right or wrong lessons. The lesson could be, like Jeff was talking about, to learn that you don't emotionally blame the client. The lesson could be that on sales calls, you have to tell the clients to do it. The lesson could be, I should do warm calls after I send an email message. The lesson should be how to yell at clients like Jeff teaches you. Like there's no right or wrong. It's the things that you learned this year that were impactful. It's extremely valuable to write that down on paper. Some people handwrite it. I can't handwrite for shit anymore, so I type it all. But if you actually take the time to really sit down and write down the lessons you had, you'll start to realize the things that were most impactful to you this year. And then you do the same thing that you did with the achievements prior, which is going to be writing down the 3 biggest lessons that you had this year. Not because someone's looking at you or thinking about what it is, but the ones that matter to you most. And then how did those lessons impact your growth? And then the hardest part, not the hardest part technically, the hardest part emotionally of this SOP, the biggest disappointments. Now, to be fair, when I first made this SOP, I didn't have the disappointments element in the audit. And the reason why is because I feel like we're always hard on ourselves anyways, as human beings and as entrepreneurs. But I feel like it's a cop-out not to do it. Because if you are so constantly hard on yourself, which I know all of you are, don't even try to bullshit us. We know you are, 100%. Why? And what is it that you're disappointed in? Because if you don't clarify it, if you don't actually define it, then it's just going to take over you. It's like anytime that anyone tells me they're fearful, it's like, what are you fearful of? You can break it down, a similar way of doing like a fear audit. So someone will say, I'm afraid of coming off aggressive in a sales call. Okay, and Jeff, what happens if you're afraid of coming off aggressive? What's the worst case scenario? They say I'm aggressive and they say F you and they jump off the call. Okay, and then what happens? Then I feel bad about it. Okay, and then you feel bad about it and then what happens? Maybe I'm not as good on my next call. And then what happens? And eventually you realize, well, I get over it and I'll be fine.
Yeah,
that's the idea. But now that initial fear of I'm afraid of being aggressive comes to a realization of like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Nothing's going to happen. Same idea with the disappointments. If you actually clarify the things that you're disappointed on, instead of just saying, Jeff, I'm disappointed in the year I had, because that's such a common cop-out that we do, then why were you disappointed so that we can learn from it moving into the next year?
So that means if I'm looking at my agency and I'm like frustrated and angry and not sure, and I have these like negative feelings and emotions, I really should like look at that wall of like uncomfortability and like just keep saying, all right, but why, and get to a point where like I'm uncomfortable because I don't know my numbers, and now that I can say that out loud, I can finally look at my numbers and understand and be happier about it, right?
Agreed. I also think, again, like being realistic, human beings in general and specifically entrepreneurs find some weird comfort in the idea of feeling shitty. I don't know why that's the case, but I think it is true. I do think it's true. So there's like this, I think anyone that listens to this, like, oh, that's very logical. And then you don't do it.
Yeah.
And then you won't do it. You'll just keep using the terminology of like the one word that defines all of these emotions and all of these things. So, and it's similar on the other side of the coin, right? Like I'm happy. Why though? If you define it, then you can make it happen again. Otherwise, it's just like one fleeting sense of state, similar to like I'm not satisfied or I'm dissatisfied or I'm unhappy or I'm fearful. Same idea.
So I really should be quantifying and qualifying these emotions and figure out what the hell is going on and either make it repeatable or solve it. So if I'm having like a down day, why am I feeling so sad? If I'm having an up day, why am I feeling so happy? And then either own it, repeat it, or stop it.
1000% nailed it. You said it better than I ever could. That was couldn't be better. And I want to say this also, in the state that you're in doesn't mean the time you have to do the audit. Because in the state, it might actually be the hardest time to do it. Because sometimes when you feel shitty just for the sake of feeling shitty, and then you try to sit down and try to identify it, you feel more shitty for not knowing. Yeah. After the fact, in reflection, is usually when you're better about it. Doesn't mean that's always the case. It's just some people are that way. When you feel crappy at that moment, it might be harder to write it out and clarify it. In retrospect, it's usually a lot simpler. Or in, I don't know what the word is, but pre-spec, like when you're planning on, like when you know it could happen. Yeah. That's also something. I don't know what that would be called. I don't know what that word is, but that's the idea. So 100% you nailed it, Jeff. That's exactly the idea. And then have we implemented a strategy to pivot or constructively address these disappointments. The most common ones that I saw, I reviewed more than 50 of these in the last 2 weeks. The most common one that I saw was not hitting a revenue or profit goal. That was like the most common one. The ones that really impacted me personally were the ones that like they didn't provide for their family in a certain way. They didn't spend enough time with their families. Like those things, when I have any control over understanding it, allows me to reestablish when you have that disappointment from this past year, these are things that we can actively work towards in 2021 to change. And there's value in that because the sun is going to rise tomorrow and now we can work on making it better. And I think that's great. The last element of the end of the year audit SOP is the investment review. Now I got to be just frank on this. One really important thing. This was a softball for my ego because when it says what were the 3 best investments the company made this year, every single client is going to put POD, obviously. So I had to feel good about that. So it has to be a softball. I'd be lying if it wasn't. Just as much as Jeff gave this to all his clients, everyone's going to write the ass fam as partner. And Jeff's going to be like, yay. So it's the same idea. I'm not going to lie about it. Obviously, I made that part of it because of it. Duh. But other than that, these are still really valuable. What are the company's glaring weaknesses that need investment intervention? These are the things that you identify for prospecting, sales, fulfillment, back-end retention, productivity, VA management tasks, ads, etc. What do you need help with right away that need to have investment intervention, either through like course, mentorship, hires, done for you, do it yourself, done with you, whatever it might be. What do you need to invest in as soon as possible? Really valuable. What were the 3 best investments the company made in the last year? And then what were 3 unexpected expenditures from the last year that can help us plan? There's always things that you look back on in the year and you had no clue or idea how much that would cost. A great one that a lot of people put in that I never even considered was Stripe fees. Stripe fees are crazy expensive when you make a decent amount of money. And now suddenly what they want to do this year is like, let's change all of our clients over to ACH and we'll save X percentage, right? That was something I hadn't even considered until I saw most of the audits, which is super valuable to do. So this is the baseline end of the year audit. We can talk a little bit about the annual planning SOP as well, but that's what I wanted to share to start. Hope you guys enjoyed this thus far. If you did, can you just let us know in the comments if you have any questions? Happy to answer them. But yeah, Jeff, that was the end of the year audit.
What I find challenging is the end of the yearness is like everyone's once in a lifetime opportunity to like fix their stuff, do better the next time. But this really should be a monthly or quarterly process of like what went right, what went wrong. Let's figure it out and do better the next time.
Exactly.
And so I use the phrasing, I call it like after your sales call, I call it John Maddening yourself. Like if John Madden was like your sales call, where would he circle, right? You should be doing the same process with like the relationship you have with your business and your goals, with the dollars, what goes right and wrong and all that stuff. And I think that tool that you just showed, that SOP checklist, enables somebody to do that. Is that correct?
100%. And you nailed it. It's not meant to just be a year thing. I did it in the year thing because it's like the classic, like tied in a bow, end of year, like why Spotify does it and why like all the Robinhood does it. All the apps do it. So it was the same idea. It's a quarterly SOP though. That's what it's made for. If you do it monthly, I think there's value in it. I had not considered doing it monthly. Like I said, I think the value of this SOP is it's not an in-stone thing. There's things you can add. There's things you can remove. There's things that you can feel comfortable with. There's things you can feel that it doesn't provide you value, and that's okay. It's not written in stone. If you feel that it would really benefit you to do it every single month, do it every month. And then at some point you'll be like, okay, now I want to do it every quarter. And then at some point you might be like, I want to do it twice a year. There's no right or wrong. It's just how you utilize it to grow. There is one specific thing that I would say is wrong. Only doing it once a year. I would say that's probably not a good move. Although my mindset would also be like, at least you did it once a year. So I think the only thing that I would say is wrong is not doing it altogether. But
baby steps, right?
You get the idea.
So my curiosity really says like, so let's say I do this for myself. I do this for my agency. If I have a VA or an ads person or fulfillment person, a white labeler, cool, maybe we'll time to do it together. But is there an application to doing this to a client, with a client, getting their perspective on paying me money? Like, how does that apply to what I'm going for?
So great. So basically what I recommend is you open up that SOP, and I'll send it to all of you guys probably tomorrow, to be honest. But basically what you do is you go through that SOP, you make a copy, you'll remove my branding from it. Totally fine. I'm giving you the permission. Make a copy, remove my branding, add your branding in, and then remove the things that you don't think are viable. Right? My recommendation if doing it with clients is having only 3 steps, not 5. 3 is a lot easier to swallow than a 5-step. Also, the 5 steps, it will take at least an hour. So if you do it in 3, you could probably get the 3 steps done in like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And there's a really valuable thing to do where you will mix both the SOPs that I'm sharing. One is the end of year one, and then the annual planning one, the BHAGs as you call it, which was funny.
Yep.
So if you do both of those at the same time, it's like, these are the things that we did that really, really worked out this year. And then these are the things that we want to do next year that work. And that will set you up for longer term retention. All of you should be going to your clients at the beginning of this year and trying to set them up for at least a 6-month retention. So your client turnover rate is only twice a year. So 6 months, 12 months, that should be the goal. Is that going to happen always? Absolutely not. You shouldn't have that like thought process that it's definitely going to happen. But if you're getting good results and know how to communicate efficiently, there's no reason you shouldn't be asking for it. I'll share with you the 7 things that I cover. I know I just said 3, but I just want you to hear, you can put them together. The thing that you want to cover first is the major highlight of this past year. This is for clients, not for you. It's different. The major highlight that you achieved for them this past year, the biggest thing, the most valuable thing, the best thing you can do. The important KPIs and metrics, the goal, the spend, the cost per lead, cost per acquisition, the applications, bookings, the impressions, all that jazz. Number 3, the optimizations and results. It cannot be an exhaustive list. Think of the 3 biggest optimizations you made and the biggest results you had, including anything that didn't work. The good challenge here is adding at least one thing that definitely didn't work, so it doesn't make it seem like you were 100%, because no client will ever feel that you were 100%. They don't need you to be 100% to be good enough. They just need you to be good enough and making sure you're making them.
Right.
That's the key. If you try to pretend that you're 100%, you're kind of missing the mark here. Goals and optimizations for the coming year, really valuable. I'll show that to you in a second. What we need from you, if you need anything from them, you probably don't. Client accountability. Did they accomplish what they committed to? I learned a lot of this, honestly, from Jeff, from that amazing presentation about how to yell at your clients. And the idea that Jeff's always talking about is like, they commit to something at the beginning of the agreement, and then they don't do the shit that they commit to. And who gets blamed? You get blamed. But if you say, no, you committed to this and you didn't do it, and I have it recorded, and there's proof because you signed it, what the F? That big difference. And also showcase partnership, not providership, which is not a word, but you know exactly what I'm saying. And then finally, just sum it up, like a high level overview and what you think next step should be. You can easily put that together in 3 steps, and that would be something really valuable to do with each of your clients. And I strongly recommend that you do it with each of your clients. If you have a big agency, so more than 10 clients, make sure you have your project managers set up with a simple agenda like this. They can do it for you. That would be my recommendation.
I think that sounds massively powerful. And simply because at the inflection point I am with my agency, it's like we're having like normal ups and downs. We took some bad clients. We're like, all right, get out. Like, this is not going to work. We need people that are like committed to being growth, not people that just want to like flatline. And it's entirely 2 different lines of thinking. And my sales guy, who's I think watching, but I'm not going to call him out because I don't want anyone stealing him. He's great at his job. Like, he got 2 1-call closes for $2,500.
Let's go.
I was like, that's fucking awesome. And one of the ways that he did it was like, he's established, like, are you trying to grow your business or are you trying to stay stationary? Because it's 2 different lines of thinking. And what would be amazing is if I go back to clients that flat out were not a good fit, everything was bad, get out of my culture, get out, like, see you later, goodbye. Is there an advantage to having some type of like end of year audit with them or end of relationship audit, like a debriefing call or something like that?
Yeah, so we have a deboarding call SOP. I'll see if I can pull up like the agenda elements for you. I think there's always value in it, in the same idea that you can like learn something from them for the future because we're playing a long-term game. I think there's an emotional aspect to it also. Like, if they're going to treat you inappropriately on the call, I don't know if it's necessarily worth it, honestly. Like, for me, like, very transparently, I'm a super emotional person and I'm like a big Snuggie bear, except I'm really small and not large at all. But like, I'm not really good with like clients being rude. It's weird that my agency is only attorneys because, I mean, just bluntly, they're dickheads like all the time. Like, that's their thing. But it's also why I don't work in my business really at all. Like, it's why I've handed off 99% of it, because they're assholes. So like, yeah, I think being reasonable, there's 2 different people talking to you right now. Mm-hmm. The coach that does this, Alex, says, yeah, definitely do the deboarding call. The guy that actually does them says, no, fuck that person. Yeah. I know it's like, I want to just be honest about it. Like, I strongly advise my clients to do it, but like the emotional side is also a real thing. There's just a couple things I'll throw out in deboarding. It's really simple. It's like a very short SOP. Couple things. Number one is, do you believe it's in their best interest to continue working with you? If yes, you should have 3 main points why you believe they should not cancel the service. If you don't, decide whether to do the call to garner necessary feedback for future retention optimizations. Those are really the 2 main things. It's not, and this is like the main thing, it's not a loss if you lose a client. It's a loss if you don't know why and don't make any changes. Like, you should remember that. If I did tattoos, which I wouldn't, if I did, it would be go fast and break things. And it's not a loss if you lose a client. It's a loss if you don't know why and don't make any changes. Those are really key. The next thing is identifying the client's number one concern. Can you logically fight it? Can you overcome it? Was this concern expected, or were their expectations far off? So there was more time they needed, more volume, whatever that was. Those are basically like the frames that you'll do. And then the way is that you acknowledge and confirm the obstacle. You explain how you'll overcome the concern. You'll explain that there's no other, or ensuring there's no other lingering concerns. You share results, proof, and value. And then you can tell them, if applicable, offer a discount to the service or move on. Those are kind of the elements that you're looking for. But again, I do think, I think needs to be said. The idea of the deboarding call is, I think, like a lot more fairy tale than it is actionable. Like, it's actionable in a much smaller percentage than you want it to be. Like, you'll probably do it successfully with 10% of the clients, because most agency relationships don't end positively. There are the other ones where, like, hey, it just didn't work. I get it. It's all good. Most of them are like, you're trash. I hate you. Bye. It's like, okay, so do you want to do a deboarding call?
Yeah.
Like, nah, bro. So it's kind of, it goes both ways, honestly.
So what I was doing is, when we took on a bunch of non-ideal clients, people that didn't want to grow, stationary, stuff like that, I did the deboarding call. I tell you what, I got pretty emotional pretty fast, and I didn't expect myself to. So I was like, it's like, oh my God, everything's horrible. Everything's bad. It really fast. Right. But I'm trying to figure out, like this end of year process seems to be so massively impactful. I'm just going to make the assumption that I can go ahead and do like an end of the year audit of failed client relationships, find the lessons, and then instill that into an ad, a slide deck, an email, an SOP, a training. Don't be a Karen. Here's the characteristics of a Karen, right? I took that from Nick Korm. Like, he literally tells his clients, don't be a Karen, right?
What if so like Karen though?
Then it's like, then you can't take them on as a client, right? It's like, just don't be you, right? So like, I think, like, as a philosophy and as a strategy, having a kind of summary to either close the loop or reopen it is massively powerful. As a culture, we just decide collectively, hey, let's all do it December 31st, January 1st, and forget about it. And I think the lesson on today's live is to say, like, you shouldn't be forgetting about it. You can do it monthly. You can do it quarterly. You can do it end of year. You can do it for yourself, for your agency, for your team members, successful clients, failed clients. And it's not a loss if you lose a client. It's a loss if you lose the lesson. Is that correct?
Nailed it. Yeah, 100%. If you don't understand why it hurts, and just remember, the coaching side that I'm trying to share here is really valuable, but there's also the emotional side that's totally fine and logical. Do it when the emotional stuff is over, so that you can really get the insight. And if that means you have to go back like a little bit, that's totally okay. Like, we spent a good amount of time in POD and for Sky Social Media the last couple of weeks trying to identify what we failed or lost. Last year, Jeff, this is a perfect example. Last year, our average retention was 3 months, which was the length of my program. This year, the average retention was 6 to 9 months. Why was that the case? What did we do? We learned from all the clients that left in 3 months and then switched it for this year. And now, because of that, we doubled the retention, which is insanely valuable. That means doubling the lifetime value of the clients we work with. That's this.
It's so crazy. Like, and by the way, what's the difference? Literally just saying a 6-month program instead of saying a 3-month program.
That was a big one. That was like the biggest. The other thing was, when we finished the program, we didn't have an offer like with a new name, and that was like a new thing. It was just like, do you want to continue? And everyone was like, yeah, I'm going to try myself, kind of thing. So those were the 2 biggest lessons that we had last year. We changed that, and it made a massive, massive difference.
The first person to really break my brain on that was Joshua Rhodes. I did an interview with him like a year and a half ago. He was the only person that at the time I knew that nailed real estate and nailed it well. He had a 3-month like real estate accelerator lead generation program. And he's like, look, I know every single one of these clients is going to cancel on day 91. So now I have real estate agency CEO where we teach how to convert leads better.
Exactly.
So I was like, oh, so that was it. He's like, yeah. And now, like, stick around for a year. I was like, hold on a second. All you're doing is knowing that they're going to cancel and then have a next tier program for the solution. He's like, yeah, that's it.
Well, back to the agency model instead of the coaching, so that everyone here gets this. This is so common. Agencies will say in sales calls, they'll be like, it's a 3-month commitment, but like you don't have to pay up 3 months, right? And then after 3 months is over, then they move to month to month. What the fuck is that? Why are you moving backwards? That doesn't make any sense. That means every month you have to kind of hope and pray that they're going to re-up. That is the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Once they do 3 months and you get results, get them for 6 months. Like, okay, now we're going to do 6 months. And they're like, why? Because you just had success. And now we're going to partner for the next half year. It's so stupid. I don't know why people do that. It's so common.
That was the mistake I made. And that's why I'm happy I'm doing a masterclass with Nick Robbins on like selling like 90-day, like 10K contracts, right? At the minimum, they're sticking around 90 days. Like that's just how it's going to work. And I don't know any successful landlords that are like, yo, you want to do month to month forever? That doesn't happen, right?
It's impossible. They make you sign for 2 years. Make it for 2 years. And also the idea of like selling the longer term packages will increase your retention. If you only have 90 days, which is not great, a lot better than 1 month. Think of it this way. 90 days means you're churning your client base 4 times. It's not an amazing number, but it's certainly a lot better than 12 times. It's a lot better because most agency owners are in the 12 time phase, meaning month to month, every month, there's clients canceling and leaving and maybe clients coming in. That is a crazy business model to run and so stressful. I mean, the stress level is extremely, extremely high and not worth it, honestly. It's just not.
Could I use the feedback from these forums, talking to clients, winning, losing clients, all that, to then structure my next tier program, like solve that next problem, things like that? Like if they said like, hey, Jeff, I would have stuck around, but we keep having problems like converting leads into customers. Well, now we've got Carpet Cleaner Conversion Academy. It's a 6-month, like something like that, right?
So Jeff, last year, a couple of the clients that left POD said, well, I love what you do, but you're not helping me enough with ads or my fulfillment ads. So I brought in a coach for ads and a coach for fulfillment ads. And then I'm like, I have them now. Do you want to come back? And they're like, yes. So 100%. Like if you're not listening to the people that are paying you money, then you're not going to get anywhere with it. And I think some people are afraid positioning wise. Like I personally think it's the opposite. I think when you're open and transparent about the things you're not clear or ignorant on or want better clarity on from the people that pay you, they feel like they have a seat at the table type of thing. Like, wow, okay, you're not just a provider to me, you're a partner to me. Everyone that I work with in coaching and in Sky Social Media, the agency, I want to be looked at as a partner because partner and provider has an inherently different mindset towards the long-term retention model. And I think there's just so much more value in creating a culture and an environment where you feel like you're a partner. It makes it harder to cancel. It makes it harder to feel like you're not part of something. It makes it easier to feel like you're part of a community and easier to want to continue working with someone and easier to share your opinions. Like I'm always expressing, please share your feedback and whatever. That doesn't mean that we have, we'll always implement it. And I always make like a silly joke here, and this fits you, Jeff, for sure. It's like, and look, just when you give us the shittiest feedback ever and the worst ideas, we'll laugh behind your back and you'll never know. And it's all good. Like you won't know that we're laughing at you for how terrible that idea was, but it's okay. Right.
And then you wrote it down and I'll consider it for like a half second and then we'll throw it away and it's fine.
That was the dumbest fucking idea ever. So no, but like, okay, let's keep going. So we make that joke a lot. Attorneys don't really like the jokes though. They're not. They're not big. No, they're really cut and dry. The paralegals appreciate them though. And I speak mostly with those people. I mean, not anymore, but those are the people most of the time. So yeah, it's pretty interesting how it goes. I just want to make sure that regarding the time, I want to make sure I touch on the BHAG because I know a lot of you wanted to see how you do the annual revenue SOP. I'll just show this really quickly so you can see it. I just want to make sure you guys get the chance to see this. So this right here is the annual revenue SOP or the annual planning SOP. I just want to specifically touch on this for 1 second. And it's the annual revenue goal. How's it broken down into 4 quarters is how you should be doing this. I would not be breaking this down into 12 months. It's much harder to do. It's much more frustrating. Do it in 4 quarters. What do you believe is the biggest factor to hitting the goal? So a lot of people doing this currently will be like, they'll say, I need to have more sales calls. I need to close more deals, blah, 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 blah. And then why? Please listen to this. Why? W-H-Y, which is why. If you can't say why, there's no purpose to your goal at all. If you say why because someone told me I should do it, no purpose to your goal. There has to be a legitimate and real why behind this.
We did this with a client. Like my sales guy was like, but why do you want to grow your business? She's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, that's not a strong enough reason.
Not
And
even
then it took like 2 or 3 minutes of like the why. And then it's like so that she can quit her side gig teaching job and finally focus on the business and build it and sell it. I was like, all right, so that's a big enough why, right?
Exactly.
It can't just be the money part. Yeah.
It can be just the money part because it's too material. And then if you don't hit it, then it doesn't feel like you did anything wrong. And when you do hit it, there's no value to it. You're like, okay, whatever. Next. That's how it works. Profit goal, same idea, exactly what we just said. What is your time goal? This is super important. Again, the business is made to facilitate your life, not the other way around. Facilitate your life. So what is your time spent goal? Without any biases, what is the task or role you want to spend the most time on this year? Without any biases, what's the thing you want to spend the least time on this year? I say without any biases because you probably listen to myself or Jeff or Nick or anyone out there, and like they're giving you ideas of what the conventional role is for a CEO, a salesperson, a project manager. Fuck the convention. It's your decision. You decide. What do you want to spend time on? What do you not want to spend time on? It's simple as that. Simple as that, okay? The only other one that I wanted to touch on here, and I'll share this with you so you guys can have it later, is the business facilitation goal, okay? Consider this step as if you had all the money your heart desired. Brain dump your answers in each prompt. There's no right or wrong answers. What do you want this business to help facilitate in your personal life? And I share this at the beginning, and it's a good tie-up. Specific achievements will make you happy. What specific achievements will make you fulfilled? What specific achievements or things will make you dissatisfied? In one sentence, what do you want your business to do for you this year? That's the key. That's what matters. That's what's important. This is how you create big, hairy, audacious goals, which, yes, admittingly, I had to look up because I was like, what the fuck is BHAGs?
You sent me that. I was like, he's going to Google it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. You should have sent me to let me Google that for you. I don't know if you so funny. If you guys haven't seen it, it's like a Loom video that they send of someone actually Googling a question you ask them. It's really funny.
That's so funny.
It's great.
Well, look, we got a boogie. Always a pleasure to have you on, Alex.
Yes, thank you.
For anybody who would like a next step with Alex, just hashtag copy in the chat. He'll send you whatever it is, him or his VA or something like that, whatever documents he's willing to give out. Either way, though, I think the biggest lesson is looking back at what went right, what went wrong, and make it repeatable and predictable and consistent. Whether that's good or bad, either you add to it and keep doing more of it, or you stop doing it and you don't have that problem anymore, or you use it as an opportunity to build your next year program.
Nailed it. And be kind to yourself going through it, because I know it can be hard and challenging. And most people that go through it feel like they didn't do enough. You probably did enough. And if you gave it your best, that's the best you've got. Keep trying, keep pushing, and be kind to yourself. I think that's the best thing I could say. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Alex, see you later, buddy.